what the plan is, boys. We have this fancy-dancy tier list. And yeah, I know it says F1 2021, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to say it's 2022 practice. And we are going to rank all the teams. So, let us start with Mercedes. So with Mercedes, I mean, the silver livery, it's no good. I don't like it, but that's okay. Hey, you know, you can't judge a book by its cover. What else? So Lewis, rank what, their liveries? No, not their liveries, just how the weekend's been going. So Lewis had the fastest time overall. What was Lewis's fastest time? Let's see. He was like 0.3 up, I think, total over the weekend, which is not substantial. I mean, you can't judge testing by the times, but I mean they did go fastest, and but Mercedes were struggling with a little bit with their balance. I mean, everyone's struggling with the porpoising, right? So does everyone understand what porpoising is? That's the real question here. Here is a Sky Sports commentator showing us what porpoising is. Look at this. Okay, actually though. I can't believe someone actually did that. Okay, here we go. There's the Ferrari porpoising. So what's happening is because the downforce is all generated by ground effect, it's sucking down the car, and the car is actually getting too low when it's going over the bumps. So when it gets too low, the venturi that it's creating with the floor is disappearing. Oh. And what happens is...
No, Mikey. No, Mikey. That was so not right.
Thank you for the follow. What happens is when you lose that venturi whatsoever, then you have no downforce, and all of a sudden your car jumps back up. And when your rear end jumps up, your front end jumps up, and then you start gaining that ground force again. And it's coming down, it's coming down, it's coming down, and then you lose it. And then you get this kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I don't know why we named it after a porpoise, and we just didn't call it the dolphining or the whaling. But very specifically, this is a reenactment of what a porpoise would look like. So everyone struggled with this. There was some worse defenders. Mercedes wasn't one of them. And believe it or not, Ferrari's not one of them. These guys struggled heavily with their porpoising. So, you know, Mercedes, they completed a total of 393 laps, which is second overall. So, you know what, boys? I'm fully comfortable putting Mercedes at an A tier. Solid weekend, got the laps in, got the data collected. No real big hiccups. Delivery shit. And they were porpoising a bit more, or kind of average amount of porpoising. So everyone's going to struggle with that. Who do we have next? AlphaTauri. Okay, you know what? AlphaTauri just put in a solid performance. Where did they finish at? They finished at 308 laps, which was 6th on the weekend. So not bad. They had some reliability issues, and that was their only reliability issue was when Pierre put it into the wall. And they lost about half a day there. So that's what really set them behind. Nothing special. The car seems pretty mid of the pack. There's no crazy design components to it. And they didn't show incredible pace. So anyways, I think I'm happy putting AlphaTauri. Oh, you can't even see it. AlphaTauri's in the B tier. It's there, trust me. Now we get to the Red Bull. Now the Red Bull is interesting. Let's take a look. This is the Red Bull car, and I still don't quite understand everything that's happening here. But lots of the teams have gone for undercuts, but not quite like this. They've undercut the entire side pod and raised the floor. So this is where the ground effect Venturi diffuser starts. And they've created this kind of artificial barge board in the middle of their car. And it's totally undercut for this entire side pod. It's a really cool design. When we compare it to the Mercedes, oh no, that one didn't work. Okay, let's try the Ferrari. There we go. So here's the three of them. So Ferrari's got this super wide side pod, and they have this very cool kind of ditch in the middle of their side pod. This helps create some downforce, and it's actually sculpting the flow of air into their rear wing. Very cool design. I think this is really out of the box as well. Mercedes just went for the tried and true. They're undercutting their side pod, trying to make the rear end as skinny as possible. And my other picture showed it. But anyways, it's about half as narrow in the rear end as the Red Bull. And then Red Bull come out with this crazy undercut side pod. Like, this is nuts. And then they push all the air around the floor, very intricate floor design. You can see both Mercedes and Red Bull have intricate floors when compared to Ferrari. Because Ferrari's doing all their work higher, right? They're doing it all above the side pods. So I think Red Bull definitely wins the most out-of-the-box award, with a close second being Ferrari with these cool ditches. So the car is super cool. Red Bull came out with 358 laps. Not bad. Puts them in 4th place. Can't really complain about that. And they had one reliability issue. The one reliability issue was the gearbox on day 2. And Perez only got 78 laps in that day. So, you know what? Another solid weekend by Red Bull. I was thinking about putting them in S tier just because their car is so freaking cool. And they had very little reliability issues, but that one reliability issue did cost them about half a day. So we're going to drop the Red Bull down to an A tier there with the Mercedes. Alfa Romeo, they struggled, man. They got the worst camo livery. It looks like they didn't develop their car whatsoever. That thing is porpoising like no tomorrow. I think them and the Alpine were the worst porpoising cars on the grid. They got the Ricky and Joe. He got more laps in than Valtteri, which is not what you want. You want to have the senior driver get more of the laps because he can provide feedback to the engineers. And I mean, at the end of the day, they only logged 175 laps, which surprisingly is not last. That is 9th. So with their reliability struggles and with their porpoising, low lap counters, I think Alpha, I don't think it's quite an F. We're going to get to an F. I think they're solidly in a D tier. Bottom 2 team, still going to be in the bottom 2. Car's not developed nearly as much as everyone else. And just struggling out there. What happened with Bottas? He had some reliability issues. There was a fuel pump at some point. There was they didn't have a fire, but they just could never get their car on the track. There was a small part that had failed on the car. They lost half a day on that. So yeah, that was not the best outing. All right, Alpine. Alpine, they had a lot of excitement in the offseason, right? There was all this talk about El Plan. And none of that really materialized on the track. I mean, they had reliability issues, and they said at the beginning, hey, we don't care about reliability. We're going for strict power. They have a split turbo design now. So they've copied kind of the Mercedes, and Ferrari's now copied the Mercedes split turbo design. So all the power units are running very similar ideologies now, which is kind of interesting. But the fact that they're saying, hey, we don't care about reliability, we just want to get the power down, was kind of showcased this weekend. They came 8th in terms of total laps produced, which was 264 laps. Not bad. It's not in the hundreds like a couple other teams. But, this lack of reliability we do see. We do see in something like this. And that was apparently a hydraulic leak and a sealing issue. But not what you want to see on your brand new engine come winter preseason testing. So that was a struggle. I think, there are some good things. Mr. Alonso was positive. Alonso was positive after a testing session or after any sort of session about his car. Alonso's not a positive guy if the car's shit. So if he feels the car's good, he's going to show it, and he's pretty much no bullshit kind of guy. So that's interesting to think about. Their DRS was not active this weekend, and I don't know specifically why it wasn't active. I don't know if anyone in chat knows. I know they were struggling heavily with the porpoising, so I wonder if they just shut the DRS to force more porpoising to get all the data collected, but they weren't using DRS whatsoever, and they had the engine issue. So sitting at 8th with 264, a couple issues, but a positive, very well-seasoned driver. I think that's a C tier weekend for Alpine. They got everything they needed out of it. They could have done without some reliability issues, and the car is still kind of a question mark in my mind. All right. Who do we got next? Aston Martin. All right, we got to talk about first things first here. How much better is this green? This green is 100 times better on the new car than it was last year. It just pops, man. That's a stunning car. Now, Aston's gone close to Ferrari. They have wide side pods with the kind of shark fins off the side, or shark gills, I should say. So they've gone closer to Ferrari than Mercedes in terms of design. They struggled a bit, though. Vettel had a bit of an engine issue. We saw that in the replay there, but there he is putting out his car. That was an oil leak. Oh, look, the gills are actually working as intended. But yeah, rough weekend, and Aston Martin was one of the teams that was porpoising extremely hard. They were 7th in total lap times at 294 total laps being put through. So you know what? I think they're kind of in the same boat as Alpine. Solid weekend. Couple reliability issues. The porpoising really bad. They got some work to do. I'd comfortably put them down as a C tier. All right, McLaren. There's not much to say about McLaren, to be quite honest with you. They came 3rd this weekend in terms of total laps at 367. They had great pace. Now, are they sandbagging less than the other teams? Are they doing more heavy fuel runs than the other teams? I'm not too sure. They have a very similar car to Mercedes. It doesn't seem like they're holding anything back, but you never know. They did pretty good. I think that was a solid weekend, and I think I'd be comfortable putting them up there with the Red Bulls and the Mercs. And not to mention, that new orange and blue just pops. That's a beautiful color. I love their new livery. Oh, dear. All right, so we got Haas next. Lando did awesome, yeah. And unfortunately, most of my notes are for Haas. Not really. But Haas had an interesting weekend. With this invasion of the Ukraine, their title sponsor is Uralkali. And what was it? Was it Thursday night going into Friday? Uralkali is owned by Mazepin's dad, obviously. Blah, blah, blah. I don't need to tell you guys the story. Anyways, he's an oligarch. Jean does not want to be associated with an oligarch in some sort of war against a sovereign nation. So Thursday night, they were ripping all the Uralkali decals off. No decals remain of Uralkali. They're going to court next week regarding how to sever that tie properly. And with that, Mazepin will probably lose his seat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here this week. Who might take over that seat? I mean, if he had the pace, I don't think he should be thrown out of F1 just because of what kind of connections his dad has or what his country's doing. But the fact that he's only there because of his dad's connections and he doesn't have the pace to be there, I think that spells the end for him. So on top of all of the Russia stuff going on in their second seat fiasco, I mean, who's going to get it? You guys can let me know. Is it going to be Gio? Are they going to get Piastri in there? Could we see the return of Hulk? There's a lot of different names being thrown around. But on top of all of that, they only got 9 laps in day 3. So that gives them a grand total of 159 laps for the weekend, throwing them in 10th. So that's a rough weekend. Fittipaldi has it first. Well, I mean, he's the backup, right? But I don't think he'd get a full-time seat. I think he would occupy that seat for 2 or 3 races maximum, and they'd find a full-time guy. That's just my opinion. So anyways, with all that going on, I think we can all agree that Haas definitely had an F-tier weekend. That was rough. Williams. All right, Williams actually had a solid weekend. 5th overall in laps, 347 total. And it kind of looks like they're squeaking back up into the midfield. You know, their times, I know we don't want to talk about times for testing. But their times are edging into the midfield times. They have great reliability. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, they didn't even come with a car. Last year, they had reliability issues. This year, boom, 5th. Middle of the pack for total laps. And Albon on day 3 actually had as many laps as Lewis at 94 total, which was the most laps out of any driver. So I think Williams is in a very comfortable position. And I think based on where the team has been and where it is right now, I think that's actually a B-tier weekend for Williams. Very solid outing. And I'm excited to see what they have to show for the rest of the testing. And last but not least, that leaves Ferrari. Now, Ferrari came first with total laps at 439, and they had incredible reliability. There was no issues with this car all weekend. Binotto, who is notorious for saying stuff pretty much at face value, he's a very much, he won't bullshit you whatsoever. Said that they were running heavy fuel loads all weekend and their engine wasn't tuned anywhere near maximum. He actually got so bold to say they will not be bringing any upgrades to Bahrain. He said that, yeah, we came to testing. Car looks great. We're not going to bring any upgrades to Bahrain. We look good. Now, could there be a little bit of mind games there? Sure. But they look very good. And Carlos and Charles both said that, the car feels great and they really had no issues with it. And Charles will say when he has an issue with the car. So I think the best weekend overall has to go to Scuderia Ferrari. Now with that, there's a couple general things we got to take from this weekend. And the biggest one is Charles' comment on how much better it is to overtake with these new cars. Let me just pull his comment word for word here. So he said from 3 seconds to 1 second, the car in front, you actually can follow closer. Then from 1 second to 5/10, it's similar to the feeling last year. And from 5/10 to extremely close, it's much better than last year. So it's awesome. I mean, this is exactly what the rules...
No, Mike, that was so not right.
Hey, Nando, thanks for the follow, man. This is exactly what the rules were for, right? Bringing the pack closer together and making sure that you can actually pass. So, even though you have kind of a half second of maybe similar strategies going on, the fact that once you actually close the gap, you're able potentially to get by the guy without using DRS would be very cool. You can follow close without heating up. I mean, that's still to be seen when we get into a race weekend and how long they can actually push that stretch for following so close. But I think things are looking good. Things are looking good for this year. So anyways, that is my tier list of testing for this week, Spain. We're going to do another tier list in Bahrain, see where everyone goes up and goes down and who breaks down and who brings the upgrades. Because at the end of the day, I think Bahrain is going to be strictly about how to get rid of the porpoising and trying to limit that.